It include the possibility of failure. But at least we have to try hard. Time is running short for all of us on this beautiful planet. As I said, we have challenges in Europe. Europe has been one of the major contributors to the emissions, of course with others. So we have to of course, take the largest burden. In this context, there are of course also very many challenges in Ghana. We are offering our support in the framework of our development cooperation, and we hope that Ghana will live up to its own objectives.
Well, our diplomatic affairs correspondent was there for us, and Blessed is with me in the studio. You are the German embassy today. They're taking this very seriously. I'm talking about the Green Ghana Day. Did you explain why this is very important? They held a big event, planted their trees, but also made some pronouncements.
Okay, Evans, we need to lay the background. The fact that these are diplomats, so by international convention, they are not expected to participate or interfere in any domestic matters, i.e. matters happening in Ghana. But based on an invitation from the host country, and in this case, the Republic of Ghana, diplomats can participate in any domestic affair. And in the case of the Green Ghana Days, the reason for which the German government, by extension the embassy represented here in Ghana, decided to participate in the Green Ghana Day. The ambassador, Daniel Crow, explains that the president of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, extended an invitation to the diplomatic community to participate in this Green Ghana Day, and the explanation is that it's in line basically with the international convention. Talk about the UN SDGs and some of the international conventions that we're signatory to. So based on this whole push for tackling issues around climate change, which is also a priority for the German government, they believe that it will be symbolic if the German government also reciprocates that by hosting some Ghanaian officials and jointly carrying out an exercise to plant at least a tree today in fulfillment or in honor of the invitation that the president has extended.
And then more substantively, it talks about this new European Union law that will make it impossible for us to export our cocoa to Europe if it is established that it's coming from a deforested area. Explain that.
And in fact, we need to point out that here on the Joy News platform, we've reported the high-level visit by the German Minister for Economic Cooperation together with the Labour Minister who were accompanied by the ILO President. You recall, Evans, that the Lands and Natural Resources, who was then acting as the Trade Minister, Samuel Abujinapo, met together with the Gender Ministry was also involved in that negotiation, where talks went on between the German side and the Ghanaian side on how the produce coming into the European market could be sanitized. And that's why we're bringing in, for instance, the ILO to deal with the aspects of child labor, and then the need to work with the existing institutions to tackle issues bordering on the deforested land, because per this new EU regulation, you will not be allowed to bring a produce into the European market if the land on which you're producing the cocoa has been deforested or has led to deforestation. So it's not necessarily, and we need to clarify that, Evans, that it's not the Europeans or by extension the German government that is stopping the cocoa from entering the market, but giving our heightened level of galamsey, as we call it, or illegal mining, you may not meet the requirements, the new standard that's been set in the European market, a reason for which we may fail to make it. And that's our main cash crop, so that's likely to also affect our forex.
Yeah, and it also will affect stuff like soy, beef, palm oil, wood, cocoa, which obviously is a key thing, coffee, rubber, charcoal as well.
Far-reaching,
yes. Derived products including leather, chocolate, and furniture. So even when we process it locally, we'll struggle to export it if it is determined that it's coming from a deforested area. And as we know, as we mentioned, Ghana is battling with illegal mining, which is key. And talking about illegal mining, the German embassy at the ceremony made it a point to invite Professor Frimpong Boateng. We know he's in battle because he's under arrest currently. He spoke to us extensively about that. He believes he's been victimized, but he was there, and the German ambassador made it a point to give him his full endorsement.
There's a background also to that story, Evans. Professor Frimpong Boateng traditionally is not someone who's an expert in the extractive sector. His background is in science, and it's because the German government gave him the opportunity to train in Germany during his heydays. And so, of that historic moment. Of course, the reason why we all celebrating him to be a heart surgeon, one of the very first, not one of the very first, in fact, the first African to perform that exercise in 1992. And subsequent to that, he's used all the funding he's raised during his lifetime working in Germany, bringing it back home to establish the Cardiothoracic Center. And it's the reason for which he's been celebrated. He's been awarded for that. And there is evidence to point to the fact that even within his professional community, the Ghana Medical Association and all those who matter, they celebrate him for what he has done in contributing to Ghana's development. And this has been made possible by the German government. And it's the reason for which, now that he's come back home to serve his country, the German government believes that it's now time to honor him. If indeed we're talking about the contribution to the fight against illegal mining, tackling climate change, Professor Frimpong Boateng cannot be left out of the equation.
There's planting trees and there's also deforestation. We also need to join forces in fighting deforestation in the country and to preserve the natural reserves of any country. In this context, I'm very happy that a very eminent person of this country accepted my invitation to join me here today. And I'm very happy that Professor Frimpong Boateng, a known fighter for environmental protection in this country, is joining me here today. And there's another reason I'm very happy that Professor Frimpong Boateng is here with us today. And that is because I believe strongly that he is a very, very important role model for all young Ghanaians. The other day I was at Kumasi at KNUST University, and I was asked, whom can you think of when you would like to suggest a role model for Ghanaians? And I think Professor Frimpong Boateng is certainly one of them. And the reason why I do think that is because all his achievements in his lifetime were merit-based and based on his own competences and willingness. So it's about being ambitious and work hard to make your ambitions come true and reality. And with this, I would like to encourage all Ghanaians to follow that example. And there's another reason, and that is the fact that Professor Frimpong Boateng, after studying and working, researching in Germany, decided to come back to Ghana and to serve his country.
And indeed, this is something that Frimpong Boateng himself said in my interview with him, that he returned and that he feels what has he done wrong. And this endorsement is coming just 2 days after the news became public that he had been invited. The special president told that he was actually directed to come. And subsequently arrested. And that has not deterred the German ambassador at all from this talking about extolling his virtues and the achievement that he's done and giving him an endorsement and asking all of us to emulate it.
Instructive words, Evans, but we're not clear as to why the Germans decided to honor Professor Frimpong Boateng just 2 days after that incident. And now that we're learning, yes, of course, of the decision by the Office of the Special Prosecutor to investigate him. But then what's instructive is that you find this diplomat coming back again to our domestic affairs to say, when it comes to the fight against illegal mining in Ghana, he would nominate Professor Frimpong Boateng as a role model. That's a very big statement to be making at a time when, of course, investigations are going on around
his own
matters
role in
relating to illegal mining.
mining.
So is it the case that the German ambassador and by extension the German government is saying we believe his side of the story, and it will be crucial because we need the Germans now that we're running an IMF program. Yeah. We have some economic partnerships going on with them.
Just to put it in context, so the German ambassador has been very controversial of late
in
taking
recent times.
National issues. What about Frimpong Boateng?
So for Professor Frimpong Boateng himself, he's elated, of course, honored by the decision by the German government to honor him. He continues to talk about what he's passionate about, which Evans, he says, is the issue about illegal mining. Now, he brings it and connects it to the imminent ban sanction that's likely to happen. He says that it shouldn't be about the sanctions. We should be more concerned when it comes to the issues of illegal mining about the possible effect on ourselves as a nation.
If a forest or a green area is left, they say, oh, why are you wasting the land? We should go and build there. No, it's not a waste, because I always say that the trees are our pharmacy. The plants give us the drugs that we use. 25% of all drugs we use in the hospitals are plant-based, are from plants. At the same time, the trees give us the oxygen we breathe, and then they take the carbon dioxide that we breathe out. So in a way, the trees are our lungs. And again, most of the food that we eat are from plants and trees. So the trees are our supermarket. So anytime we are planting a tree, we know we are establishing a supermarket, a pharmacy, or our lungs. A question, whether Ghana is going to be sanctioned by the international community for our failure to meet the targets. I'm not afraid of sanctions from our partners, but the difficulties that we are going to have ourselves when we destroy our water bodies, we destroy the forest, we are no longer able to use the water, we are losing our biodiversity, people will be getting sick from pollution.
I want to bring in right now the Public Affairs Manager of Cocoa Board, Fifi Boafo, who joins us now via Zoom. Hello, Fifi. Thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Hi, Evans.
Great to have you. I mean, this law, as we've just been hearing from the German ambassador, is going to be enforced very strictly. Ghana will be suffering if indeed it's enforced because of the challenge we know we're dealing with right now with illegal mining. How is the Cocoa Board reacting to the passage of this law and the impending full enforcement? I've seen many countries have already been taking on the UN because they passed this, and the allegation is that it was unilateral. What's your stance on this at the Cocoa Board?
Well, for us, we've been engaging with the EU for the past 2 years on this law. Indeed, we made some recommendations, and that informs some of the changes that we see in the law at present. Of course, not all the recommendations we made were accepted. So we've been working to ensure that we do not suffer the consequences of these laws. I'm sure all of us are aware that Ghana has an existing manual traceability system that we are able to track cocoa from the district to the port of shipment. Of course, this does not qualify under the new arrangement by the EU. So Cocoa Board has developed an improved electronic Ghana cocoa traceability system with the cocoa management system, which we put in place. This ensures 100% first-time traceability from the farm to the ports. So this clearly puts us in a position where we are in a position to account that indeed the cocoa we are shipping is one that qualify under the EU traceability law, which has been passed. So all cocoa from Ghana has been specially been mapped with GPS, and this ensures that we are in a position to say that our cocoa is not one that is produced from a forest reserve, which the law does not permit us to do.
I read the specifics of the law. It talks about cultivated in a deforested area. And we know what is happening with cocoa. A lot of our, forests, reserves or not, are being deforested. And if you look at the statistics, we've lost a significant portion of our forest cover. That clearly is a challenge.
Well, if you look at the law, it says that from December 2020, any cocoa that is planted within a deforested land. So the starting point is 2020. And the idea of the cocoa management system is that we are able to track every cocoa coming in. So if you have a cocoa farm and you're a farmer who has been registered, given a cocoa card, we are in a position to tell that farmer A or farmer E's farm is within this location. And if the farmer's farm is within a forest zone, then such a farm will be mapped out and the cocoa from that farm will not be taken over. So we are able to tell before, at the point of shipment, we are able to track the cocoa that is going to port A or port B, that this cocoa is coming from this particular farm and that farm is outside the forest zone.
And Fifi, so clarify, you're suggesting that Cocoa Board itself is not buying from individuals or organizations that produce or grow cocoa in areas that you deem deforested. So you're making the decisions here before you export.
So, mindful of the consequences of what the law brings, we are ensuring that a farmer, for starters, is not even producing in a forest zone. Going forward, from October this year, before a farmer will be able to sell cocoa to Ghana Cocoa Board for export, that farmer will come with a cocoa card. Before you get a cocoa card, you should have been registered, and then through the registration process, we do the GPS mapping of your farm. And if the farm is within a forest zone, then you do not qualify as a cocoa farmer, because this system we are developing, we superimpose it on that of the Forestry Commission. So we can tell a farm that is within the forest zone, and such a farmer is disqualified as such. So the system we have developed now makes sure that if you are within that zone, you do not even for starters even qualify to be a cocoa farmer who will supply cocoa to Ghana Cocoa Board.
Very interesting times indeed. And this will begin, you say, in October this year?
October this year. Indeed, at the recent meeting organized by the European Union, where Ghana showcased what we've done in terms of developing the cocoa management system, it was a model most of the countries felt that it was advanced. It would take them a longer period to get there. So this system takes into consideration all the things the European Union are looking for. To, of course, apart from issues of deforestation, there are issues of child labor, which is also another leg of it. But in terms of deforestation, yes, this system deals with all the concerns that have been raised in the law.
Fifi, thank you very much. I want to quickly bring in the Deputy National Director of Rocha Ghana, the environmental non-governmental organization, Daryl Bosu. Hello, Mr. Bosu. Thanks for time here on Top Story.
Good evening, my brother, and thank you for having me.
I mean, just been listening to the Cocoa Board there, and the German ambassador has been talking about the strict enforcement of this law that was passed in April, which will affect Ghana. You've heard the interventions that Cocoa Board is planning to roll out to try and mitigate the impact on us. Your quick reaction?
Yes, I think we have all been following this EU regulation. And we are very happy that Cocoa Board is taking all the necessary steps to ensure that farmers are complying to some of the key aspects of the regulation, which requires that there's no cocoa production really driving deforestation. So I think it's another, and we certainly agree with the position of the Cocoa Board, and I believe that is the way to go. Maybe one other thing we would in turn ask the EU to look at is possibly looking at a similar regulation that really addresses illegal mining and also the export and trade in illicit gold coming from deforested area, because it is the gap within the EU regulation.
Yeah, I mean, but Daryl, if you listen to the German ambassador, this law as it is currently will still have an impact on the challenge with illegal mining, because he makes the point, if the cocoa is coming from an area that has been deforested, either by the planting cocoa itself or by some other factor, the mere fact is coming from a deforested area, if the cause is illegal mining, it will still be affected.
Yeah, so the cocoa will be affected, but that does not stop us from selling our gold anyway.
Yeah, but that will affect. I get the gold bit. It will affect us selling our cocoa to Europe.
It will,
yes.
Exactly, and you know that cocoa is one of the key, I would say, foreign exchange areas for Ghana, but also we have gold. So if we are not able to sell our cocoa to Europe, I'm sure there are several other markets, and that is where there are already loopholes. And I'm saying that whilst we are looking at cocoa and also having a regulation that is addressing that, we also should look at other commodities, because as you know, once we see there's a loophole in the system, we always try and take advantage of that. If we can't sell our cocoa, at least we can sell our gold, and that in itself can enable Ghana to still keep having the leeway to ensure to really not even deal with the menace of galamsey. And then the other point that has also been raised, which I think is also very crucial, is the fact that we really do not have to just focus on the regulation by the EU, but we need to focus on the impact of this menace of mining and deforestation on our own lives here in Ghana. And that is, for me, a very significant factor that really should even drive us to, first of all, take all the necessary action and steps to really nip galamsey in the bud. Our water bodies are being polluted. Now, the EU is thinking about the health of its people by saying that your cocoa should not drive deforestation, it should not have some trace chemicals and all of that. What is the government of Ghana doing to protect the health of Ghanaians? We are being exposed to polluted environment, being exposed to polluted rivers and streams and all of that. What is the government doing? If we are only acting because a regulation is making some demands of us, and that is the only reason why we act, then that is unfortunate. I think as a government, we owe a responsibility to secure the health of our citizens.
And indeed, they do. Thank you very much, Darrell, with the environmental NGO, Arocha there. And talking about the impact of illegal mining, as we've been hearing already now, cocoa is going to be affected because of the export challenges now into Europe. And that's why today there's a press statement by the Media Coalition Against Galamsey, and they are taking this fight seriously. They've issued a statement following up on the Akunta mining alleged involvement in illegal mining, and they've been meeting with the police. I have with me the convener, Ken Ashigbe. Mr. Ashigbe, thanks for your time here on Top Story. What's the update on this matter?
Well, thank you very much, Evans. So we had a meeting with a senior officer who was delegated by the CID Director General to meet us. This was after we had petitioned the IGP, and the IGP had forwarded the petition to the Director General CID. But for a very long time, we were not hearing anything. And you also remember that myself, Martin Pebuson, and my colleague, the four of us, also had petitions. And even on that end as well, we're not really hearing that much. So we wrote again to the IGP and we followed up with the IGP, and then this call was made. The Director General herself did not meet us. He asked the Superintendent of Police to meet us. And so we expressed our disquiet about the fact that, this is a petition that was accompanied with a lot of evidence, including the Minister of Lands statement, the Minerals Commission statement. There was video footage of the fact that damage has been done. There was evidence of the police themselves having had to intervene between a clash between the people of Samraboy and the Akunta mining. So there was ample evidence to take this case and get some prosecution done. And we were disappointed that we're not also hearing anything in the press, that any action has been taken. And so when we met, they apologized and they told us that there was some action happening. But we asked them that whatever support we could give, we would do. And then it was really important, if we really wanted to avert this eminent threat, as the German ambassador is saying, the others that come from Japan, when it comes to your sustainable source of income, that is your cocoa, and even your legitimate gold could now be classified as a gold that was causing, such damage to our people. It was important that the police also indicated that level of seriousness, and then they ensured that this case, was actually they completed the investigation and then gave it to the Attorney General to get prosecution to happen. And hopefully the judges would also look at the evidence available and make sure that the directors of Akunta Mining are punished according to the Minerals and Mining Act as amended.
Did you get the assurances you were hoping to get from the police? Hello, Ken. Did you get the assurances you were hoping for?
Well, we were given some assurances. But you see, Evans, what should happen is that you notice that in the Constitution, sovereignty lies with the people. The same Constitution also gives you, the media, the mandate to hold leadership to account of the people. And then the president, in his inaugural address, told us that we should be citizens but not spectators. So the assurances have been given. But for this assurance to mean anything, it would mean that the likes of Joy FM and the multimedia, you who have already been doing this, you also follow up with the director CID and then to the Attorney General, and then when the case gets into court, ensure that we really would follow up for this thing to happen. We need to ensure that there will be no political interference so far as this case is concerned. And there are other cases in court as well that we need to ensure that, we see prosecution. If you remember, the Attorney General, when he reported on cases that have been dealt with, look into those cases. Which people who are well-connected people, politically exposed people were involved, were named as part of those who have been successfully prosecuted. So that has to change. So we need to ensure that the Bosome Freho MC, for example, former MC, who was found caught on tape confessing to an illegality, the Minerals and Mining Act is thrown at him, not some administrative procedure. We need to ensure that Aishawan, for example, that prosecution happens and we get the maximum sentence for it.
Thank you, Ken. Well, Ghana has been planting trees today. The president himself did plant a tree, and he has been speaking at this year's Green Ghana Day, a tree planting exercise at the University of Ghana, and called on every Ghanaian to plant a tree as a contribution towards the 10 million per day target set by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, also restating his government's commitment to protection of the environment.
We'll continue, explore all avenues to enhance our forest cover through afforestation and reforestation programs, and protect our natural resources through community-based management and conservation initiatives. Today, your contribution is to step out, take a seedling, plant it, and make sure it grows. I encourage each and every one of you, my fellow Ghanaians, and indeed, all persons living in Ghana, young and old, men and women, urban and rural, to join me on this historic day in this national tree planting.
Well, the Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Abujinapo also asked Ghanaians to step out there and plant a tree.
The 2021 planting, we have 80% plus success rate. And the 2022, we have 70% plus success rate. Mr. Speaker, let me use this opportunity to thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for your leadership and for your support in this endeavour. And Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to observe that all the trees you planted on the premises of Parliament are doing very well. The pundits tell us that from 1900 to date, we have lost about 80% of our forest cover. This calls for aggressive afforestation and reforestation. And Mr. Speaker, the Green Ghana Day is one of the efforts government and the country is making to restore the lost forest cover of our country, thereby contributing to the noble effort of the world at halting climate change.
Well, tell you what, this week has been dominated by news around illegal mining and the role of senior officers either in government or outside. And you've heard extensively from Professor Frimpong Boateng, who used to chair the Interministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining. He himself was a former environment minister. Well, tomorrow on News File, Kisia Jabing, who is a special prosecutor, will be hosted by Samson Lade in an exclusive interview. Samson joins us. Samson, this is one that we can look forward to, especially having heard this week from Boateng himself and what had happened when he visited the special prosecutor.
Evans, you are right. We clearly have a duty to hold the special prosecutor to account. So people need to know how far the special prosecutor has gone with its investigations in the Galamsey area as far as corruption and corruption-related offenses are concerned. On the 10th of October 2022, they issued a statement and told the whole world that they were investigating matters related to Professor Frimpong Boateng's committee and its work as far as corruption was concerned. Then I think on the 2nd of May this year, they issued another statement to sort of reassure us that they were on that job and that a quantum mining and has also caught their attention and they were doing work in that area. So we want him to account to the Republic what exactly has been going on. What is Frimpong Boateng's crime, for example? We need to know the details. The curious coincidence of his arrest at the time of his release of this statement that many believe, should rather be applauded and be used to help the fight.
And we look forward to this. This is 9 to 10 a.m., so first part of News File tomorrow morning.
Absolutely right.
Something, thank you very much. We look forward to this. You don't want to miss News File tomorrow morning, and you can hear from Kisi Jabin, the special prosecutor himself, on the Galamsey corruption investigations. And a simple question, something we'll be asking from the start: what's Professor Frimpong Boateng's crime? You don't want to miss that. And you also don't want to miss Ghana Connect, which starts right now.
Because of their business, to look down upon this town, make this town look very negative. But we all know in this country that when people justice somewhere and they don't get it, the only place they come is Nogopo.
In reference to Nogopo, I wish to clarify that I never intended to refer to the town, but rather make reference to an incident that happened after a crusade at Aflao. I had absolutely no intention to cast a slur upon the people of the Nogopo town and the Volta region as a whole.
This week, the Peace Council issued a statement worried that the impasse between the Perez Chapel International and Nogopo traditional authorities, if not quickly addressed, may have, quote, consequences on peaceful coexistence and religious tolerance in the country. The controversy started when Archbishop Charles Ojunosari, the founder of Perez Chapel International, made pronouncements that the traditional authorities felt was offensive. So, on the back of the controversy and the Peace Council's concerns about a threat to religious tolerance, we ask, how can Ghana consolidate the religious harmony and tolerance that makes Ghanaians so unique? We connect Ghana and beyond to discuss.